Right, I'll call the meeting to order. And in the spirit of reconciliation, I want to acknowledge we're on the homeland of many diverse First Nations and Métis people who have walked this land since time immemorial. We are grateful to work, live, and learn on the traditional territory of Treaty 8. And with that, we'll move on to adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion on this?
So moved.
All right. Is there any additions or deletions that need to be made? Nothing? Okay. All in favor? Carried. Our first agenda item is the capital reserves review. Can I get a motion to start this? Judy, or Councillor Stenhouse?
No.
Or Stenhouse. Oh, it's going to be one of those nights.
It's going to be one of
Councillor
those.
Manaka. Yeah, that's right.
I make a
It is
motion.
still water in here.
I make a motion that council restrict operating reserves in the amount of $65,500 and capital reserves in the amount of $487,775 from the 2021 budget.
All right. Now, I'm just going to ask Sasha, are you able to hear any of that very well?
No, not at all. I mean, I heard mumbling, and I knew it was a female voice, but that was about it.
Okay.
But
Just
I imagine that she read option one, I think, from what I gathered, so.
That's correct. Yeah.
For the important discussion points, I'll just have to have you repeat, anything that was pertinent.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll listen very intently.
Yeah, I know. From being at that end before, I know it is hard to hear at that end. So, okay, so I'm going to turn it over.
I'm just curious if you put your speaker right close to the laptop, would that help for Sasha to hear?
You know what? Does that help, Sasha? We've got the speaker, so you should be able to hear better.
Testing.
Your speaker's not on.
Testing.
I hear testing.
That's it. Okay, and that's the person you want to listen to because he's going to lead us through this for the first little bit.
Okay.
That's right. Rita came across, so thank you, Rita.
Good. My voice does have a harshness to it, I guess you want to say. It's easily heard, I think. If you look at page 7, we're going to use that as our reference point. I don't want to read everything I've written, but I'll just highlight overall there is going to be a large surplus in 2021, which is a good thing considering there's a lot of capital projects that need to be done in the near future. So the 1.187 is what I'm anticipating right now, unaudited. When I spoke to the auditors last, they said after you take the amortization out, it should be in that ballpark. It might be as high as $100,000 more, but it's not all cash, is what I'm trying to say, because when you have your debenture payments, you're using that cash, but it becomes an asset, and so it becomes recognized as income. You don't actually have the cash anymore because you've made the principal payment, but it shows up as a surplus. So it's a little bit misleading from that perspective, but just keep that in mind, okay?
Can I just ask before, out of this 1.187, that's how much of that would be cash? How much is?
Well, about $350,000 is the principal portion of the debentures. So
You take off 350 from there?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So we had anticipated 90,000 and we're at 1.18 rather. The biggest areas, of course, was the arenas, the recreation area. That was about 257, Rose was 257,000 and the recreation was 178,000. So those are the bigger ones, the ones that came in under budget, the largest. I put all the recreation together in number 8. So I cross-referenced what was on page 7 to my RFD by numbers. Do you want me to go through one at a time, or is everyone clear on the items that I've...
So I'll ask council if you want to have the details, but the bottom line is what she's saying is there's the 1.187 left over from last year surplus, and we need to assign that to accounts, into restricted accounts at the end of this year, or for last year.
Yes.
So I don't know if you need, the details are in there of where all of the money came from.
Yeah.
Where each of them was. Do you have any questions on the details? I don't know if you need to read it all, I think, but if we have questions, it's probably fair to ask.
Okay. So basically what I'm recommending is that we allocate 65,500 into operating reserves for work that wasn't completed in 2021 but was budgeted for 2021. We requisitioned, or rather levied, our ratepayers for that work to be done in 2021. So instead of putting it back into the budget for 2022, we're just going to transfer the revenue that we currently have into 2022's budget. So by doing an operating reserve, you're taking it from 2021 as an expense, and you're just going to allocate it to revenue in 2022 to offset the actual expense that you're putting in 2022. Does that make sense? Okay. The capital reserves that I'm recommending of 487,000 are as per 2021's budget. Nothing's changed there, but we're going to make sure that those ones are going to be restricted and go into those categories.
Councillor Wakel?
Just a quick question. So the 65,500, that's for work that was supposed to be done last year that wasn't done, that we're just bumping it forward to do it this year. Now, are those costs that were locked in, or do we have to put a little extra in there for inflation?
There is inflation in the museum. That one has been set up, but that one's got a disclaimer also. If we should get a grant, it won't even be necessary. But the cemetery, that's concrete, and it should be pretty close to being the same price. I don't know that concrete has gone up as dramatically as other areas, but hard to say. We are doing the labor ourselves, so that's keeps the price down. The reservoir dam is engineering, and I believe that should remain. That was an estimate based on 2021 at the end of the year. The radios, well, that one is going to be a software support change, so we haven't been told that there's a difference there. And the golf club donation, that is fixed. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So based on that, you have a motion on the floor. If you have any questions, I'll entertain them now.
I don't see anything. I know when I went through and looked at some of these, oh, sorry. Sasha, go ahead, and then I can.
Really, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really quickly, Rita, so you said that we're gonna take the 65,000 into operating for 2022 as a revenue. I noticed that under your section, so under administration, there was an increase in revenue for 16K. Is that what happened the previous year? Is that, or I guess my question is, what was that increase in revenue?
Under the administration?
Yeah, under administration, it was page,
Okay, so are you in the 2022 budget, or are you in,
No, I think she's looking at one of these.
Yeah, in item 2A, you just noticed that there was an increase in revenue by 16K. I'm just wondering,
Oh.
so for example, is it supposed to appear the same way? You know, there'll be an increase in revenue generated because of the budget surplus and over, is it supposed to appear the same way next year?
no, it actually isn't going to show up that way. The revenue increased by 16,000 is different revenue that administration received extra funds. I can tell you by looking at them what they are, but off the top of my head, I don't remember. Taxation, council, administration. When the operating reserves are going to show up, they're actually not going to show up. It'll almost look like a deficit, a decrease to our reserves for next year. That's what it's going to show up. So when you're looking at the reserves, instead of showing that we're going to put 575,000, it's going to be 505 because that 65.5 is going to be taken off of it. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Okay, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, I don't see any, I did have a question. Some of the numbers didn't necessarily line up on each of these, but they were just rough estimates that you were putting down here. Is that, for example, you had said roads, decrease in expenditures was 257K. When I sort of added up the numbers, I got a different number, not 257. So.
Well, there could be a couple of thousands that I haven't identified because they were just not
smaller
material.
things. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Was I very off?
Well, I was just using the numbers you had here, and I got about 242,000
Okay, so that's
versus the 257.
That's 15,000. I can take a double look at it, but I thought I had identified the majority of it.
Yeah, and that's what I expect. At the end of the day, we're gonna, if we have extra money, that once it's all audited and everything is finally shaken out, we're gonna, if there's anything extra, it'll go into the unrestricted operating fund, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in either way, it's going into our savings account one way or another.
For future plans, yes.
Yeah. It won't be the restricted, it'll be the unrestricted, but it won't be a big difference there.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, no other questions? The motion was that council restrict operating reserves in the amount of 65.5. I'm wondering why it says restrict. To me, that doesn't mean that we're going to move money into the operating account.
The term, as I interpret it, kind of means that you're reserving, you're allocating that amount. We can use the term allocate if you prefer. You're just basically saying that this is now being directed towards these projects and for these purposes.
Okay, yeah, like that's the way the word restrict for me, it just, it doesn't fit. I don't know what others, that's what made me wonder what it would be.
Do you prefer the term allocate?
I do. I don't know about others. That, to me, I understand what allocate means. If I restrict it, it means it's restricted. It's not going in. That's my brain.
Okay.
So in this context, you're restricting to your operating reserves. That's what that means.
Yeah, I just like the word allocate
Yeah.
better. To me, for my simple brain, it makes more sense.
Okay.
This is.
But is,
This is,
it's Councillor Danaka's motion with the friendly
Okay.
amendment?
I will make that friendly amendment to change the wording to allocate.
Okay. And my other question on the motion is, do we need to define the accounts for the restricted 487,775 into which accounts, which you've done on the page before, but I just wasn't sure if it needs to be in the motion to make sure that that's clear.
what if you use the term as per the RFD? Then it refers to the RFD and you know how it's allocated.
Okay, but if we put it in the motion, then it's very clear.
Okay. Yep.
Again, I don't know, Councillor Danaka, did you add that, those 4 lines in there?
Would you also want to do it for the operating reserve?
Well, we're just saying 65.5. Yeah, we're not saying exactly what it's for, right? But we know it's being used for last year's expenses, or, I don't know. Should it be in there?
For consistency purposes, if you're doing one, do the both.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna rescind my motion, and I will make a new motion unless somebody else wants to make it.
No, we want you to make it.
Okay, so I direct administration that council allocate the amount of $65,500 to the High Prairie Golf Club donation of $15,000, bylaw for radios of $4,000, water the reservoir dam for $17,000, cemetery for concrete markers $7,500, and the museum for exterior paint $22,000 for a total of $65,500.
Then the capital.
Okay, and the capital reserves in the amount of $487,775 to be distributed as fire as per ICF $58,461, equipment pool $129,314, water $150,000, sewer $150,000, for a total restricted capital reserve amount of $487,775 from the 2021 budget.
That was a fantastic motion.
Why, thanks.
All right, all in favor?
Did Sasha hear any of that?
I think she did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Did you,
Okay.
you heard that, right? She's
Okay.
nodding, yeah. I didn't see, did you did vote for, okay, I didn't see your hand go up, sorry, that was, I'm trying to go from computer screens and around, so if I miss it, yeah. Okay, so then moving on to our 2022 budget, and we'll start with the 4.1, the capital budget. Can we get a motion on that?
Move that council approve the 2022 revised capital budget, total expenditures of $1,975,634, funded by capital reserves $667,134, grants $1,302,500, and operating $6,000.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll turn it back to our CFO to lead us through this one. So,
That's back-to-back pages had me a little confused, pardon me. So basically, there's a few changes that have happened since we approved the budget back in December. Things are coming in a little bit higher than we anticipated, which we've addressed some of them at the previous meeting, which was the Bobcat and the backhoe. The arena cooling tower, the pool pipe repair, and the pool sand filter. The pool sand filter is the best estimate we have currently, but they are having difficulty, what's the term I'm looking for?
Sourcing one?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, sourcing is, they're having difficulty. So hopefully that will fall into place. The large mower, we did do some research on it and are recommending at this time to just remove it from the 2022 budget. The lagoon dredging, we're going to go backwards now up at A. The lagoon dredging, we're experiencing issues with the RFP that was put out. There wasn't many contractors that were available, and the one that was exceeded the 200,000. So we're going to have to go through Alberta Purchasing Connection. If we were to accept that, we'd have to retender because of the amount. Therefore, it's administration's recommendation to delay one more year. And our Public Works is pretty confident that using chemicals for another year will, to keep the growth. Oh, sorry, enzymes. Thank you. To control the growth for this year. Item number B, which is the walking trail projects. We believe we can do approximately $50,000 worth of work and use up the TOLCO grant that we received. The Sports Palace ice pad, we will have to delay the project until 2023. We've been told that the project will likely come in not at 400 or 450,000, but rather closer to the 900 or $1 million project price tag. So we still have not heard from the Canada Revitalization Grant, which we applied for this, which would help fund 50%, because at that time that's what we applied for. Hopefully by next year we'll know what will come of that. The Gordon Buchanan roof, we're still waiting again for the Canada Revitalization Grant. However, they have told us that we can proceed with the grant and get the work done, and it wouldn't harm receiving the grant. It wouldn't, sometimes if you do the work before you get notification, you get disqualified for the grant. This is not one of those type of grants that would do that. So unfortunately, the grant came in at 300, or is estimated at 350,000 instead of 250. So we're gonna also recommend that as a backup plan, we apply for the what was known as the federal gas tax, which is now the Canada Building, Canada Building, it's CB something. Anyway, I've written it a few times in here. I'm sure we're going to see it later.
Revitalization.
Oh, Building Canada Fund. That's what it is. Building Canada Fund. So if we can use that, we get about 150,000 every year. So we can use that to subsidize the amount that the 300,000 we'd have last year's and this year's that we could use. No. Sorry, I thought we used up all of last year's. If we look at this document on page 10, there is 153,000 from 2021 and 153,000 from 2022. So there is 300,000 available. Okay. Okay, so that's on the right-hand side at the very top, under federal gas tax column on page 10. So those are the major changes in the proposal from December. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I'll start with one. I'm looking at the Gordon Buchanan roof. Are we going to be able to get that done if we approve it? Because it's getting late in the year, and I'm not sure if we can get it done now. Is it doable?
Well, I don't have the firm answer for that, but I do know that depending on the timeline it takes to do the roof, you can tender within a month as long as you have the drawings and the tender package out. And then if you waited till, say, September to do it, because we don't actually put the ice in the Gordon Buchanan till October, you'd have a month and a half maybe of a window of opportunity. And if you tender now for the work to be done in the fall, it should, in theory, work. What we don't currently have, to my understanding, is the plans for the tender package. But I'm not sure. Ramona would be the better person to answer that question. She's been the one dealing. Have you at all been dealing with the engineers? No. I think it's Ramona and Rod that were dealing with those, and so.
I think she has the RFP ready to go,
Okay.
and it's going to be put onto the APC. She called me on Monday to get the password to post it, so it's ready to go.
Okay. And just because I know the engineers have been at it, what's the plan for that roof? What are they going to do to stop the leaking? Because that's the other thing. We're not sure. What are we spending the money to do? Not sure. Okay.
Unfortunately, I wish I had those
Whoops. Unfortunately, I wish I had those answers. We can try calling Ramona on the phone and seeing if we can get those, if you prefer.
Well, no, I'm just for my sake, I was trying to figure out what they were going to do. Are they taking off the old tin and putting on new tin? Are they covering the old tin with another layer of tin? I just wasn't sure what they were doing. Are they putting some kind of coating over the whole thing? And I just, more out of interest. I mean, we got to get it fixed. I know that. I was just wondering what the plan was to fix it. And I sure hope that it works.
I would hope also that it comes with some type of warranty.
Yeah.
So that if it doesn't work, then there's somebody that's accountable. But
Okay. Other questions on the capital budget?
to answer your question, Mayor, Your Worship, we could probably get an email sent out to all of council with the type of work that's going to be done at the Gordon Buchanan roof. If they're ready with the tender package, then they must have they know the plan of action.
Sure, or at least come back and notify us at the future council meeting. That would
Okay.
be good too. Yeah, if you can for that. So when I look at this, we're dropping the lagoon dredging, we're adding the walking trail project, but we got money for that. We're dropping the ice palace for now at $400,000. We're adding $100,000 to the Gordon Buchanan roof project. We're also looking at getting the backhoe, the bobcat, the arena cooling tower, the pool pipe repair, the sand filter, and we're canceling the large mower. That's the summary of all of the changes that have happened in the last 5 months. No, okay. And the net result is a decrease of $53,000 from what we had budgeted. All right. Is there any questions on that? Looking it, Sasha? No. Okay, so we had the motion that I think option one, which is what we had talked about, are just summarized there. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to item 4.2, it's the 2022 operating budget. Get a motion on this one?
The council amended.
I'm gonna get,
Okay, Therese?
yeah, Councillor Yushin.
That council approved, just one second.
Use your mic. Oh, so Sasha can hear.
Let me just get organized here for a sec. The council amends the 2022 operating budget and approve the revised 2022 budget with operating revenues 11,290, or 11,290,330, operating expenses 9,759,063, principal on long-term debt 355,009, capital reserves 794,450, restricted capital reserves 356,429, unrestricted fund operating expenses from operating reserve of 65,500.
Okay, thank you for that. So perhaps you can just lead us through what the changes are from what we had as an interim budget for 2022 and what you're proposing here, so we understand the changes.
Okay, so if we look at the page 16, you've got the overall expenditures with just the net amount by departments. I've got A, B, C, and D identified. Those are three of the changes. For council, that's a decision that has yet to be made for you guys, because the amount for your sponsorship and gifts, or no, sponsorship and grants rather, was debated at the previous meeting and not finalized. The amount that you want to allocate to STARS has yet to be finalized, and that's why I identified it there. In the sewer, my eyes, no, it's water, I apologize. The water, we experienced higher costs for our chemicals, and we don't anticipate that that's going to come down in 2022, so we're asking to increase that line item by 10,000. In the cemetery, the contract for the caretaker came in over budget. I'm not sure if Councillor Dunn wanted to spearhead this conversation.
Sure.
And if you want to go to page 12, oh no, cemetery is on page, yes, might be easier to follow.
Might be better if you explain it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
22 gives me a better insight, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, 22, page
Or
20?
12, sorry, page 12, where you have a breakdown of the explanation of cemetery.
That may be from a previous,
Year?
oh, you're right. Okay, so the page 12 is on the RFD.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we can refer to that one, sure.
So, basically the contract for ground maintenance received for non-town owned cemeteries would exceed the 20,000 budget. Therefore, there was a shift in service recommended, and there's So what's happening is there's a proposal to purchase a smaller lawn tractor, cost of 6,400, and then having summer students cut the grass, which will total 5,200 plus benefits. Fuel and parts and stuff will be an added $1,000. And what they did is they took the McHugh cemetery contract, which is $6,000, but had been with parks and moved it over to cemeteries because that's more in line with what it was intended for. And so the total cost for this year will be for 2022 will be $19,000, which is a small reduction of $1,000 for 2022. But because in year 2 we will, because of amortization, we will then see a reduction of $6,000 in cemetery care. Does that explain what you wanted them to hear?
Just the disclaimer that
Okay.
goes right after that.
So the disclaimer is that the churches will need to contract weed spraying around the headstones, as passing a weed eater is just too much liability for the town to take on. The contractor was I'm not sure how he did it prior. It was spraying?
Yeah.
But because we won't have a contractor, we'll be doing it ourselves. It's and we don't have staff that is qualified to spray. We would have to put that back onto the churches, the ones that are not owned we will do our own, the McHugh, but the other churches would have to find somebody to spray around their
Or
headstones and
So a whippersnipper, they're just worried about damaging the
Yeah.
headstones
Yeah.
if they get too close to it? That's
Yeah.
okay. And, okay,
So,
Some of the headstones are pretty brittle, they're old, and if you hit them with a weed eater, wire, the system shot or something.
yeah. Oh, I can understand that, and then they want to get after you for damaging it. Yeah, yeah, we don't want that.
And I think it's a good idea actually to put some of that back on the churches, so that they have to deal with the spraying or whatever, and maybe over time they'll say, well, it's cheaper if we just do it ourselves, so maybe they'll take that maintenance back. But I'm glad that we're putting some of the responsibility back on the churches.
Okay. And the last change in this was the 6,000?
so as Councillor Dunn had mentioned, the contract that the caretaker or the parks contract, which takes care of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, this Central Square, McIntyre Park, the tennis courts, will remain under parks, but 6,000 of that contract is now being allocated to the cemetery area instead of just remaining as part of that contract. So we're just shifting that into a different department. Okay?
So that's not a change in the budget amount, it's just a shift.
Correct.
So we've got an addition of 10,000. We have a reduction of 1,000 from what we budgeted for, so we're still at 9,000 above. The 6,000 doesn't impact anything. Is that right? Like that's just a transfer, that's not a reduction.
it's not a reduction in the overall,
It's not a reduction, sorry, the overall budget.
It's just a change in
Yeah.
cost centers.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to get my head around what's the change in the overall budget that we're looking at. Yeah.
But it does end up netting itself out. So we had 20,000 in the other one. Am I thinking wrong? Maybe No, when I do the numbers, it actually gave me $3,000 increase.
Okay, well, let's go back to maybe the first one there with the council budget and what we were putting aside for sponsorships and grants. What did you have in the budget there? What's in the budget now for grants? Just so I'm clear. I know we never really nailed it down. Do you have the?
Yes, I do.
That you will find on your page 11 and 12.
Okay. But that's what's, now for example, with STARS, is the money in the budget at this point in time? That we have 28 committed to date, but there was a...
You currently have 39,000 in total for sponsorships and grants.
in the budget.
Correct.
Okay.
And I did not change that.
Okay.
If you choose to change that,
Yeah.
then it would change the bottom line. But if you choose to uphold it, then you still need to decide how much you're going to allocate to STARS, whether it's going to be 0, 4, 8, which were the numbers that were thrown out at the previous meetings.
Okay. Well, let's 0, 4, and 8. What were they asking for?
8.
They were asking for 8. What did we give in the past?
8.
8. Okay. Okay. And right now we've committed 28,000. And if we commit 8 to STARS, that would take us to 36. And we have 39 in there. Okay, well, that's a very good question that we can go around and see if we can get a definitive answer again on that one, because that will impact our budget. So, well, maybe just go around and you can tell us if you're in favor or not in favor of the 8,000.
For STARS,
Yep.
are we even looking at a donation to victim services?
What we had said with victim services is we did two things. One is they were looking at doing a change to the victim services fund.
Right.
And it was with the province, they were looking at reallocating the money, so they might be getting more money from that. So I think we were going to hold off at this point until they find out what they did, or what's happening with the province, as opposed to funding it at this point. That was the last discussion I think we had on it.
Because there's all that money that is sitting, right, that we're trying to access.
Yeah. And we did write, I believe we wrote a letter on that to say it should be going, the money that the victim gets should be going, should be going back to victim services. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about the 8,000 for STARS?
I am good with giving them 8,000.
Yeah, okay. From my point of view, I'm okay with it also.
I was leaning more towards 4, because it leaves, I mean, it leaves us something, because there's, other stuff might come up, right, that we're gonna think, oh, that's a worthy cause, we haven't got any money left.
Okay.
So,
I believe I was looking at that, cutting that in half for this year anyways, just because of the other things that we're trying to do and we're facing, so I was the same. I was looking at 4.
Donna?
Reducing it to 4.
Okay.
Sasha.
So,
Sasha.
Sasha?
So I will reiterate some of my points from last time we discussed STARS, and that is that we would reduce that ask for this year, given all of our spending constraints. And the fact that we're operating in a really constrained environment. STARS is not going to not function without us, without our contribution. We also double give through Alberta municipalities, so we're asking our ratepayers to contribute multiple times. In addition, I would rather put that money back into the pot, and if ratepayers feel really strongly, let them decide what charities they wish to support. Again, if we were in a cash-rich position, by all means, I've supported STARS personally and actually municipalities before, but in this case, the conversation the last time was that STARS has enough of funding, plus we support them through multiple other ways. So I wouldn't support it this year. Where I think we have allocated resources. We're trying to be really prudent with every dollar, and so I would not be supportive this ask.
So are you saying 0 or are you saying 4,000?
0.
Okay. So we've got 3 4s, all right with an 8 and a 0. So what I'm seeing is with 3, I think like I would go with the 4-2 with that one. So I think we've got an answer with that one just informally going around, and we can make a vote on that. But that brings us then to, we've got 4,000 left. Do we want to keep that 4,000 in the 39, or do we want to reduce the 39,000 by 400 or 4,000?
Keep it in the 39. It gives us flexibility, so if something else comes up, we have the funds available to support other worthy ventures.
Just that being said, like in overall, I mean, we advertised it, was that we ask people to get their request in prior to, for this very reason. So we know that our budget is set, and this is who we're sponsoring.
Absolutely, and we've asked that for 20 years, and in 20 years, they come every year after the budget's been set.
So if you don't set the line, it's the same as when you're trying to help your children understand what's real in life. If you don't set the line,
I know, but we're softies, right?
Okay, so I'm hearing 2 different sides. I'll go over to that side.
There's only a few things we can control. One is our services that we provide, and 2 is our sponsorships. And at this point for the 2022 budget, I would like that reduced.
Okay. Councillor Yashishin?
I agree.
Okay. Councillor Martins?
I would also like to see it reduced.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with reducing it from 39 to, that would be 35. And
I would like to go lower, like honestly.
well, we've already
But this
allocated.
is for the, okay, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, we've already allocated the rest, or 99% of the
Yeah,
rest
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. We don't have much room for, like Councillor Wakel was saying, to do much more, but that's the area we're in, and that should get us closer to being where we had our interim budget too, right? Like you were saying, we're about $3,000 more. If we lower that by 4,000, we're basically at about the same numbers as before. So just to move ahead on this, do you need a specific motion on that line item? And how do we give you that number so that you can move ahead and do the tax rate bylaw?
So a friendly amendment to the amount of expenses by the 4,000 for the operating expenditures would do that.
But you need to know where, right? Or does it need to be in the motion to identify where that 4,000 would come from or not?
There is a motion prepared that you can use
Yeah.
that would identify that. Then it would be clear and there would be no, yeah. So option 3B, instead of using 30,000, you're going to use 35.
Yeah, and this would change to 35.
Oh, okay. But we have one motion on the floor.
Correct.
That's
So-
what you're saying, that
Yes.
motion would change the dollar by, increase by $4,000.
Yeah, so if we did a friendly amendment and then we made a second motion that says that council keep this, the council decrease the sponsorship to 35,000 instead of 39 for the 22 budget.
Yes. Yes.
So the friendly amendment would be the operating expense reduce, would be now $9,755,063.
All right. Councillor Yushishin, are you all right with that?
I think,
No?
was it you? I thought John made that.
No.
Okay, right, sorry.
Okay, so okay, I'm trying to follow yours there, right?
So
So,
under the second bullet, on page 14,
Use your mic,
This one
just
here.
so we can hear, or Sasha can hear.
35,755,063.
Yeah,
Yeah, 9 million.
You send that to my personal email,
okay, so that's the only change?
Yeah.
the thing that you're sending
That's a
about Gordon
reduction.
Buchanan roof.
Okay.
Send them to both,
Don't forget to add the 063.
please, thank you.
Okay, do you want me to read both?
No, I think you can just make a friendly amendment to say reduce the operating expenses to $9,755,063.
Okay, okay, friendly amendment, oh,
I just realized
Sorry?
that would actually mean the capital reserve is actually gonna go up by, yeah, so it's gonna be 360,429. Or, as an alternative, you actually decrease your levy, which is not what I'm recommending, because every money that you can put towards operating, future is better, right? And we're still sticking with the 4% levy.
Yeah. So there's two amendment. One would be increasing we can reduce the operating, and then we'd have to reduce the capital reserves, or increase it, sorry, by the same amount to keep it balanced. However, we already have an increase of 3,000 on one side. So if we're adding 4,000, it wouldn't make that much of a difference. You know what I'm saying? You've said that the net increase of the other asks was adding $3,000. And we're saying we're now reducing it by $4,000. So the net change between everything would be $1,000. Is that? Is that right?
It should be. Mathematically, it should be.
Okay. I just want, I don't want to tie the hands too tightly, but I think at the end of the day, we're basically at the same budget as that we had approved.
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe with this, we can just leave these the same numbers,
Okay.
and with a motion that we're going to reduce the sponsorship by 35 afterwards, And then that'll give you the marching orders to change that one line item, reduce our sponsorships by 4,000. And all of that will basically be the same then. Other than there might be a change in the, but you're gonna come with another motion, which is the tax rate bylaw next meeting, right?
Correct.
And that's gonna be the final number, but if we tell you those two things, it's gonna be very close to this, maybe $1,000 different than what's in this motion, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Give or take a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we just keep that motion as it is?
Okay.
We can vote on that. And then we'll make a motion to reduce the sponsorships by 4,000.
Okay.
Would that work for everyone? Okay, I see Sasha nodding too, which is good. Okay, so we have the motion, that the original motion and those numbers as given. All in favor? It is carried, okay? I will make the motion that council decrease the sponsorship and grant funding to 35,000 for the 2022 budget. And that's reducing the STARS grant to 4,000, in essence.
So
I
do we
actually had a separate motion for the stars,
Oh, okay.
but it's up to you. If you want to put it all together, it's really, I'll just add it to the option number 3.
Well, let's make it 2, just so it's
Okay.
clear. So we're decreasing the budget to 35,000. Any questions on that before we vote? No? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's carried. Does anybody want to make a motion around STARS? Councillor Dunn.
I'll make a motion the council approve the STARS donation for the sum of $4,000 for the 2022 calendar year.
We've gone over this. All in favor? Opposed?
So
Oh.
I didn't hear that motion that Councilor Dunn made. What was it?
Oh.
Stars?
It's that council approved the STARS donation for the sum of $4,000 for the 2022 calendar year. And we voted for in support. Are you in support or opposed?
I'd be opposed.
Okay, so it's still carried as supported for. And so that should cover those ones. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
The last one is not necessary because it was identified in the budget, in the amount by the original motion.
Okay.
Okay?
And so from here, you're going to take this information, the tax rate bylaw will come next Tuesday,
correct.
and it'll be very close to these numbers, which is basically a 4% increase.
Correct.
Okay, just so I'm on the same wavelength. All right, so with that, we are done. Meeting adjourned.
Wow.
We better,
Well, for the record, well done, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
That may be the shortest budget meeting I've ever been
Oh,
at.
this.
oh my God,
No,
I
no.
can't believe that. We
Put in
need
the
to like,
footwork. Oh, the footwork was all done before.
Wow.
This was some minor